Andrew Tate and his scumbag brother were arrested yet again, and their arrest has ties to the Epstein network. This is something very important we have to talk about. So as you've probably seen by now, Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan Tate, two big manosphere influencers, were arrested yesterday in Miami, Florida, on rape and human trafficking charges. This is not the first time that Andrew and Tristan have been arrested on similar charges. I think the world should know by now that these two are disgusting human beings. I mean, I don't understand how an alleged rapist and human trafficker still has a massive platform, but that's for another video. But in the days before their arrest, Andrew and Tristan Tate were seen partying with an important member of the alleged Epstein network. That guy's name is Paolo Zampolli. Now, Zampolli is an infamous figure. He's currently got a position in the United States government. He's very good friends with Donald and Melania Trump. And according to some reporting, it was Paolo Zampolli who introduced Donald and Melania, even though I firmly believe 1000% that is a lie. He helped introduce them, but I think Epstein was the one that brought those two together. Anyways, Paolo Zampolli is a guy who's been implicated time and time again in the Epstein world. He is involved in the worlds of modeling and fashion. I mean, I could do an entire 10-part deep dive series about Paolo Zampolli. Just know that this guy was allegedly plugged into the network. Paolo Zampolli, though, made his way into the news cycle earlier this year when it was discovered that he had actually intervened and asked ICE to deport the mother of his child, a woman who allegedly was about to come forward with Epstein allegations. That woman was a woman named Amanda Ungara, who indeed was deported after Paolo Zampolli basically asked ICE to deport her, and she is an Epstein survivor. And she has made, just in the minimal claims that she's made, some pretty shocking claims about Epstein and Trump and Paolo Zampolli and how they were all tied together. So it's very interesting. Why would an innocent man ask for the mother of his child to be deported from the country right as she's coming forward with allegations dealing with Jeffrey Epstein in the midst of the Epstein files being released earlier this year? So that's just one thing out of many things you should know about Paolo. Something interesting to note, though, is that Paolo Zampolli is good friends with Andrew and Tristan Tate. For example, here's a screenshot of Zampolli on Andrew Tate's podcast. Here's a link to the episode where he's interviewing him. And I just want to remind you that the Tate brothers are charged with human trafficking and rape. That's what they have been arrested for twice now in 2 different countries. And this guy, Paolo Zampolli, not only likes to hang out with Andrew and Tristan Tate, but he was just hanging out with them in the days leading up to their arrest. And this is the same guy who is serving in the US government, who allegedly asked ICE to deport an Epstein accuser who is the mother of his child, who was about to come forward with some really dark stuff involving Zampolli, Epstein, and Trump. If you think this is all just a coincidence, let me burst your bubble. It's not. I'm going to stay on this story, though, so follow along for more updates as I receive.
I'm very close to the Trump family. I know them well, and I spoke to Barron.
That's Andrew Tate, the misogynistic podcaster who said that after the Trump admin reportedly pressured Romania to let him enter the US while he and his brother were awaiting trial on sex trafficking and charges there. But now a year later, the Tate brothers have been arrested in Miami, facing 38 new charges in the UK, including for rape, trafficking, and child abuse material. The pair will face extradition proceedings in Miami, but it's unclear how their case will play out in US court, especially since they're in Trump's inner circle. Barron Trump and Don Jr. have friendships with Andrew Tate, who frequently compares women to property and initially moved to Romania because, as he said, the laws are more lenient.
Not that I just get females. How do I get females to comply? How do I get females to work for me for free and give me all the money? Girl comes at you, you cheated, you're cheating. It's bang out the machete, boom in her face, and grip her up by the neck. What's up? I use sex as a tool to make women love me so they'd obey me and live in my house and make me money. So I got rich. So I became militant with the pimping.
The Trump admin claims to care about stopping criminals from entering the country and holding predators accountable, but it's clear that none of that is true.
So you had Andrew Tate posting, "Come get me if I'm guilty," and apparently U.S. Marshals took that personally, because you had the 2 Tate brothers getting arrested in Florida after the UK filed 38 new charges and requested their extradition. And you're looking at massive allegations covering 7 different victims, including multiple counts of rape, human trafficking, and SA. And then on top of that, there are 19 charges related to indecent images of kids. And so that brings their total charge count in Britain to 59. And you've got all of this coming a year after Romania lifted their travel sanctions and the 2 fled to Florida, where at the time you had DeSantis making it very clear that the Tate brothers were not welcome in Florida, leading to Andrew taunting the governor about arresting them. And the Tates probably feeling pretty untouchable in the US, with Andrew one time even bragging that his alleged connections to Trump helped pull strings and lift their travel restrictions. His lawyers even added that these new charges and arrests are a political hit ordered by a dying empire. And you also had them not so subtly claiming that this was greenlit by a low-level functionary at the DOJ who never got approval from leadership. So appealing to that, MAGA narrative that people at the DOJ, they love to engage in political hit pieces without approval from up high. And it also paints them as victims just like Trump thinks he is. And we've seen how much of a soft spot he has for that. But from here, the next steps are both legal and political. First, a judge has to approve the extradition, which is a purely legal matter, and the Tates will fight it. Then Secretary of State Marco Rubio has to actually let officials carry it out. And depending on how the White House feels, that might not actually happen. Though if anything, it does highlight a growing rift on the right and with MAGA. People like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, they think the Tates have been treated unfairly. But others like Megyn Kelly and Ben Shapiro, they've stepped up their attacks on both of them. And then finally, just a quick question. What is Andrew's obsession with tiny clothes? Or you got everyone dunking on him, whether it be because he's a self-described alpha male dressed in probably the most feminine way I've ever seen a man like that dressed. And then two, just people dunking on him generally, calling him a Temu genie.
Andrew Tate was building something called the War Room. Apparently, it's a paid, private, exclusive, secret group that men actually have to pass a series of tests to belong to. It costs about $8,000 a year. Investigative reports by the BBC say that this group is a grooming operation where male members are taught how to emotionally and physically manipulate women into, quote, sexual slavery. And these weren't just happening in silos on the internet. This was like in person. Tate would hold these luxury retreats all around the world, in castles in Transylvania with steak and whiskey and Cuban cigars. And we found out that something he teaches is how to assess how malleable a woman is. That is the word that they use. Members are taught, for example, how to dismiss women harshly after sex and then demand an act of service from them. So you have sex with someone and then you tell her to make you a meal or buy you coffee or chocolate. And if she agrees, then you're on to the next level. So it's kind of like gamifying making a woman your servant. And Tate actually said that within a couple of years of launching the War Room, at least 140 of his students were making money from pornography. Quote, everyone in here is banking 10 to 15K extra a month. But somehow it does get more disturbing because similarly to the Epstein story, the Tates became very intertwined with American politics and powerful figures. Don Jr. met with Tate and defended him, saying that the cases against him was, quote, absolute insanity. Reportedly, Tate also Zoomed multiple times with Trump's youngest son, Barron. Elon Musk even supported Tate's insane bid to run for Prime Minister of the UK. And all of these connections and kind of positive reinforcement by this very powerful elite group of people was really valuable to Tate because in the summer of 2024, before the US presidential election, Tate's mansion in Romania was raided. And he was in trouble right as he was becoming one of the most famous men on the planet.
In case you're wondering what the 59 charges consist of, human assault, and possession of sex. I'm not surprised. Growing up, I used to love David Blaine. I still love him now, but he was my favorite magician growing up. I love David Blaine. I wanted to be just like him. I used to watch all of his shows, watch all of his stuff on YouTube, and try to mimic all of his little tricks. But one thing I was super obsessed with was the fact that he could float. I used to watch that man levitate off the ground. Now, as an adult, obviously I know he can't actually float, but as a kid, man, he got me. I was convinced. The way he just sold it, the fact that he did it in front of a crowd of people and their reactions always convinced me this man can actually float. But then after some time and some deep research, I found out, he was just acting. The crowd could have been paid off, and the others, they were just fooled. Fooled by what? The angle. Found out it was all about the angle. It's interesting how an angle can just confuse a whole group of people. Now, when David Blaine would float, he would need his crowd at a specific angle. He would tell them, don't move, stay right there. He would go find his angle and then proceed to float. Now, from that angle, it looks like he's floating. But if they just took one step to the left, the entire facade will blow off in the wind. Yeah, they would see that only one foot is off the ground and the other foot, he's on his tiptoe. There's a quote that says, magic works on those who want the magic to work. There's a reason why magicians walk up to you and say, do you want to see a magic trick? And they don't just start doing magic. The magic works on you because you want the magic to work. And some of y'all wanted that magic to work. Rape, he told you about that. Human, he told you about that.
Kind of a network of young girls.
Assault, he told you about that.
You behaved, I wouldn't have to hit you, would I?
Possession of he told you about that.
I'm only 16. I was like, give a
I want a virgin wife at 16 who's going to obey me. That's what I want.
He told you about all of this. But the money, the girls, the Bugattis, the helicopters, the yachts, the magic wouldn't allow you to step off that angle. Now, for most of us, we knew what type of man this was. We're not surprised. But for others, They're not going to admit it. They're going to say this is just another attack by the Matrix on their leader. And no matter how many times he gets charged and what he gets charged with, they're always going to back him. Because magic works on those who want the magic to work. And no matter how many times he's been telling y'all, I can't float, that angle is just too convincing. In the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful day. You know I love you and I'll see you tomorrow. But if I don't, stay out of trouble.